Part 1. The Meeting. The fluorescent lights of Della Luna flickered as Maya Carter wiped down the last table in her section, her shoulders aching from 12 straight hours on her feet. The clock above the bar read 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes until she could finally go home, check on her mother's condition via text from the night nurse, and collapse into bed before her morning shift at the cafe started at 6. The restaurant occupied a corner building in Astoria, Queens, far enough from Manhattan's glitz to remain affordable but close enough to attract a steady stream of customers. Most nights, the late shift was quiet. A few stragglers nursing espresso, maybe a couple on a date. Tonight should have been no different. The door chimed. Maya glanced up, already preparing her customer service smile, then froze as the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. 6 men entered, all wearing expensive suits that fit too perfectly to be off the rack. The two in front moved with the predatory grace of trained fighters, their eyes sweeping the restaurant with professional efficiency. Behind them walked a man who commanded attention without saying a word. Vincenzo Salvatore was tall, easily 6'3", with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. His suit was charcoal gray, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, revealing a glimpse of ink on his throat. But it was his eyes that made Maya's breath catch, cold, calculating, the color of winter ice. Around her, the world reacted. The elderly couple in the corner suddenly found their dessert fascinating. The bartender, Marco, went pale and immediately started polishing glasses that were already clean. Even Giuseppe, the owner, emerged from the kitchen with sweat beading on his forehead, wringing his hands. "Mr. Salvatore," Giuseppe stammered, "we are honored. Please, the best table." Maya watched this display with confusion. She'd only been working at Della Luna for 2 weeks, picked it up as her second job after her mother's medical bills had doubled. She didn't know the regulars, didn't understand the neighborhood politics, and certainly didn't recognize the man currently making everyone act like the angel of death had walked in. She just knew she was exhausted, her feet hurt, and the kitchen was about to close. So she did what she always did, her job. "Kitchen closes in 10 minutes, Maya announced, walking toward the table where the men had settled. Her voice cut through the suffocating silence. "If you want anything, order now or you'll have to settle for drinks." The gasp that rippled through the restaurant was audible. Marco dropped a glass. Giuseppe made a choking sound, and at the table, 5 of the 6 men tensed, hands moving toward their jackets in synchronized threat. But Vincenzo Salvatore simply looked up, and for the first time in what might have been years, something other than ice flickered in his eyes. Amusement. "You heard the lady," one of his men snarled, rising from his seat. He was built like a tank, with a scar running down his jaw. "Do you know who?" Vincenzo raised one hand, barely a movement, just a slight lifting of fingers. And the man froze mid-sentence, dropping back into his chair like a puppet with cut strings. "Let her speak," Vincenzo said, his voice low and rich with the barest trace of an Italian accent. His gaze never left Maya's face. "Please, continue." Maya shifted her weight, suddenly aware that something was very wrong, but unable to pinpoint exactly what. The man's stare was intense, unsettling in a way she couldn't name. But she'd dealt with difficult customers before. Hell, she'd dealt with handsy drunks and entitled businessmen. This was just another table. "Right," she said, pulling out her order pad. "So, food or drinks?" "What do you recommend?" Vincenzo asked, still watching her with that unnerving focus. "The Audiobook is good. Carbonara if you want something faster." Maya tapped her pen against the pad. "But honestly, at this hour, everything's been sitting for a while. I'd stick with something simple." Behind her, she heard Giuseppe make a sound like a dying animal. Vincenzo's lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it had contained any warmth. Honest, how refreshing. He leaned back in his chair, his long fingers drumming once against the table. "The carbonara, then. And wine. Bring your best bottle." "Giuseppe keeps the Barolo in the back," Maya said, already writing. "But it's $200 a bottle." "Did I ask the price?" "Most people want to know." "I'm not most people." "Clearly," Maya muttered, then caught herself. She'd learned long ago that sarcasm didn't pay the bills. "I'll put your order in, 15 minutes. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Your name?" It wasn't a question. Maya glanced back over her shoulder. Maya, Vincenzo repeated as if testing the weight of it. You're new here. 2 weeks, is that a problem? No. His eyes held hers, and she felt something cold slide down her spine. Not a problem at all. Maya retreated to the kitchen, where Giuseppe immediately grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. Are you insane? He hissed. Do you have any idea who that is? A customer with a wine budget? Maya pulled free, rubbing her arm. What's the big deal? That's Vincenzo Salvatore, the Reaper. Giuseppe's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. Head of the Salvatore family, the Italian Mafia. The words hung in the air between them. Maya felt her stomach drop. She'd heard stories, of course. Everyone in New York had. The Salvatore family controlled everything from the docks to half the construction in the city. They were ghosts in expensive suits whispered about but never directly acknowledged. And she'd just told their boss the food had been sitting too long. Oh, God, she breathed. Just bring him the food, keep your head down, and pray he forgets you exist, Giuseppe said, already turning back to his stove. And Maya? Don't ever speak to him like that again. The last person who disrespected him was found in the East River with his tongue cut out. Maya's hands shook as she delivered the carbonara and wine. She set both down carefully, avoiding eye contact, then started to retreat. Sit. The command was soft but absolute. I'm working, Maya said, not looking at him. Your shift ends. Vincenzo checked the platinum watch on his wrist. In 4 minutes. Sit. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she thought of her mother in Mount Sinai Hospital, hooked up to machines that cost $6,000 a day. She thought of her sister's acceptance letter to NYU and the tuition payment due next month. She thought of the bills stacked on her tiny apartment's counter, each one stamped final notice in red. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Maya sat. Vincenzo poured wine into a second glass and slid it toward her. Drink. I don't drink on shift. You're not on shift anymore. He raised his own glass. Salute. The wine was the best thing Maya had ever tasted. Rich and complex. Probably worth more than her rent. She took a small sip, then set the glass down. Why am I here? She asked quietly. Because you interest me. I'm not interesting. You spoke to me like I was human, Vincenzo said, twirling pasta onto his fork with practiced ease. Do you know how rare that is? Maybe people would do it more if you didn't cut their tongues out. The words escaped before she could stop them. Around the table, his men tensed. One reached inside his jacket. But Vincenzo laughed, a genuine sound of surprise that transformed his face for a brief moment, making him look younger, almost approachable. So you do know who I am, he said. Giuseppe enlightened me. And yet, you're still here, still talking. Vincenzo set down his fork, giving her his complete attention. Brave or stupid? Broke, Maya corrected. I need this job. For your mother. Her blood went cold. How do you... I know everything that happens in my city. Vincenzo's voice was casual, but his eyes were sharp. Olivia Carter, 52, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, Mount Sinai Hospital, 5th floor. Your sister Emma, 19, studying psychology at NYU. You work here and at Sunrise Cafe on 31st. You're drowning in debt, medical bills, student loans, rent on a studio apartment in Woodside that should have been condemned a decade ago. Maya's wine glass slipped from her numb fingers, red liquid spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. Why? She whispered. Why do you know all that? Vincenzo stood, dropping several $100 bills on the table, far more than the meal cost. He buttoned his jacket with precise movements, then leaned down, bringing his face level with hers. Because, Maya Carter, he said softly, I've decided you're interesting, and when something interests me, I learn everything about it. He straightened, gesturing to his men. They rose as one, a well-oiled machine of violence in tailored suits. I'll see you tomorrow, Vincenzo said, already walking toward the door. I don't work tomorrow. He glanced back, and his smile was all predator. I know. Part 2. The Watching. Vincenzo returned the next night, and the night after that. He never ordered much, wine, sometimes pasta, but He always sat in the same corner booth, and he always watched her. Not, obviously, not in a way she could complain about, but she felt his gaze tracking her movements through the restaurant like a physical touch. It unnerved her more than any threat could have. "He's obsessed with you," Marco whispered one night as they restocked the bar. "Everyone's talking about it. The Reaper doesn't come to restaurants. He has private chefs, exclusive clubs, but he's here every night watching you." "That's not," Maya started, then stopped, because it was, and she had no idea what to do about it. On the fourth night, she finally confronted him. The restaurant had cleared out early, leaving just Vincenzo and his ever-present shadows. Maya grabbed a bottle of wine, not the expensive Barolo, just a decent Chianti, and walked to his table. "Why?" she demanded, pouring without asking. "What do you want from me?" "Conversation," Vincenzo gestured to the empty seat. "Sit." "Is that a request or an order?" "Does it matter?" It didn't. Maya sat, exhaustion making her reckless. "I can't do this, whatever this is. I can't have a..." She gestured vaguely at him. "A mafia boss following me around. People will talk. I could lose my job. I could..." "I own this restaurant," Vincenzo interrupted calmly. "Giuseppe pays me 20% of his profits for protection. You won't lose your job." Maya stared at him. Protection from what? "From me." The casual admission hung between them. "So, you're a gangster and a racketeer," Maya said flatly. "I'm a businessman. I provide services." Vincenzo sipped his wine. "Giuseppe operates in my territory. I ensure no other families trouble him, that the health inspectors find nothing wrong, that his liquor license never expires. In return, he pays a fee. It's capitalism. It's extortion." "Semantics." His eyes held hers. "Your mother's medical bills. The hospital sent a final notice 3 days ago, $60,000, or they're moving her to a public ward and stopping treatment." Maya's vision blurred. She'd been trying not to think about that letter, about the impossible choice looming in front of her. "That's none of your business. Consider it handled." "What?" The word came out as a gasp. Vincenzo pulled out his phone, typed briefly, then set it face down on the table. "By tomorrow morning, your mother's account will be paid in full. Current balance and all future treatment covered through the end of care." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. "No, no, I can't. I don't accept charity, and I definitely don't accept help from criminals." "It's not charity, it's payment." "For what?" "Your company." Vincenzo leaned forward, and the predatory focus in his gaze made her want to run. "Have dinner with me. A real dinner, not here, somewhere nice." "You're bribing me to go on a date with you with my mother's life?" "I'm offering you a trade. Your time for her life." His voice was cold, matter of fact. "Be honest, Maya. You were already calculating whether you could afford to say no." He was right. God help her, he was right. "One dinner," she said, hating herself. "That's all." "One dinner," Vincenzo agreed, but his smile suggested he knew it would never be just one. The dinner was at a private restaurant in Manhattan's Tribeca, the kind of place without a sign or listed phone number. Vincenzo sent a car, a black Mercedes with a driver who opened her door without speaking and drove with the precision of someone trained in evasive maneuvers. Maya wore her only nice dress, a simple black number bought for her father's funeral 5 years ago. She felt underdressed the moment she stepped inside and saw the crystal chandeliers, the marble floors, the woman in emeralds at the bar. But Vincenzo's eyes never left her. "You look beautiful," he said, rising from his seat. He wore a navy suit that probably cost more than her car, with a black shirt underneath that emphasized his height and the dangerous grace in his movements. "You look expensive," Maya countered. That almost smile again. "Expensive is all I know." Dinner was exquisite. Courses Maya couldn't have named, wine that tasted like silk, desserts that looked like art. Through it all, Vincenzo was attentive. He asked about her life, her interests, her dreams before everything had fallen apart. "I wanted to be a teacher," Maya admitted, surprised to find herself talking. "Elementary school. I was 3 semesters from my degree when my mom got sick." You gave it up? I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, Vincenzo said. You chose family. That takes strength. Or stupidity, according to my sister. Emma thinks I should have let the state handle it, finished school. Maya traced the rim of her wine glass. Maybe she's right. She's young. The young always think they're immortal, that tragedy happens to other people. Something dark flickered across Vincenzo's face. Reality teaches differently. How did you... Maya hesitated, then pushed forward. How did you end up here, in this life? I was born into it. The Salvatore family has run New York for 4 generations. Vincenzo's voice was casual, but there was steel underneath. My father groomed me from childhood. Strategy, violence, control. By 16, I'd killed my first man. By 25, I'd taken over the family after my father's death. Did you kill him? The question slipped out. Vincenzo's eyes were empty. Yes. Maya should have been horrified, should have made an excuse and left. Instead, she found herself asking, why? Because he was weak? Because weakness gets you killed in this world? Vincenzo leaned back, studying her. You're not afraid. I'm terrified, Maya corrected. But fear doesn't change reality. You paid for my mother's treatment. I'm here because I owe you. And if I told you the debt was paid, that you could walk away right now, no consequences? It was a test. Maya recognized it instinctively. I wouldn't believe you, she said honestly. Men like you don't give something for nothing. Vincenzo's laugh was low and genuine. Smart girl. He signaled for the check, not that he needed to. The staff clearly knew who he was, then stood, offering his hand. Come, I want to show you something. They ended up on the roof of his building in Midtown, a penthouse that overlooked Central Park, the city spreading out below them like a carpet of lights. This is my kingdom, Vincenzo said, standing at the edge. The wind caught his hair, making him look less like a businessman and more like something ancient and dangerous. Everything you can see, I control or influence. The docks, the construction, the unions, even the politicians answer to me. Must be lonely, Maya said quietly. He glanced at her sharply. What? Being king of everything, having everyone fear you, never knowing if someone actually likes you or just wants to stay alive. She moved to stand beside him, looking out at the glittering cityscape. That sounds exhausting. For a long moment, Vincenzo said nothing, then, You're the first person to say that. I'm sure I'm not. You're the first person brave enough to say it to my face. He turned to face her, and in the moonlight, his expression was almost vulnerable. Everyone sees the Reaper, no one sees Vincenzo. Maybe that's by design, Maya suggested. Easier to kill people if they're not real to you. Is that what you think, that I'm a monster? Maya considered this carefully. I think you're a man who does monstrous things. I don't know if that's the same. Vincenzo moved closer, and Maya's breath caught. He was too near, too intense, his presence overwhelming every sense. I should let you go, he said softly. You're a complication I don't need, a weakness. Then let me go. I can't. His hand came up, fingertips barely brushing her jaw. I've tried. I've spent 4 days trying to convince myself to walk away, but every time I close my eyes, I see you, telling me the food's been sitting too long. I see you sitting at my table, not backing down even though you knew who I was. His thumb traced her lower lip. You make me feel human, and I hate you for it. Maya should have stepped back, should have said no, should have remembered who and what he was. Instead, she leaned into his touch. Vincenzo's control snapped. He kissed her hard, one hand sliding into her hair while the other pressed against the small of her back, pulling her flush against him. Maya gasped, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until she was dizzy with it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincenzo rested his forehead against hers. This is a mistake, he said. Probably, Maya agreed. I'm going to ruin you. I know. He kissed her again, softer this time, almost reverent. Then let me. Part 3. The Unraveling. 3 weeks later, Maya's life had transformed into something unrecognizable. Vincenzo was everywhere. He sent cars to pick her up from work, arranged for her mother to be transferred to a private suite with round-the-clock care, paid Emma's tuition in full. He never asked permission, just made problems disappear with the same efficiency he probably used to eliminate enemies. And Maya? God help her, Maya was falling. Not for the money, though she'd be lying if she said the security didn't matter, but for the man underneath the monster. The Vincenzo who remembered she liked jasmine tea and had it waiting at his penthouse, who listened when she talked about her father who'd died when she was 20, a construction accident, sudden and brutal. He was a good man, Maya said one night, curled up on Vincenzo's couch while rain drummed against the windows. He worked so hard, double shifts, overtime, everything to keep us comfortable, and then one day, a scaffolding collapse and he was just gone. Vincenzo's arm tightened around her shoulders. I'm sorry. The worst part is that no one was held responsible. The construction company paid a settlement, then declared bankruptcy. No investigation, no justice. Just gone. Something flickered in Vincenzo's expression, there and gone too quickly for Maya to identify. Sometimes justice is complicated. Sometimes justice doesn't exist. He didn't argue. Their physical relationship intensified too. Vincenzo was demanding, possessive, taking her with an intensity that left Maya breathless, but he was also surprisingly tender, learning her body with the same meticulous attention he probably applied to his business. He'd spend hours making her fall apart, then hold her afterward like she was something precious. You're mine, he'd whisper against her skin. Say it, and Maya, lost in sensation and emotion, would say it. Yours. But paradise was a lie, and Maya learned that lesson the hard way. She was leaving the restaurant late, past midnight, her shift extended because a server had called in sick, when she realized Vincenzo's usual car wasn't waiting. Strange, but not alarming. He'd been called away on business, something in Atlantic City that required his personal attention. Maya pulled out her phone to call a cab and didn't hear the footsteps behind her until it was too late. The bag went over her head. Hands grabbed her arms, rough and efficient. She tried to scream, but something pressed against her mouth, cloth, chemical tasting, and the world went dark. Maya woke to the smell of mildew and the sound of water dripping somewhere in the darkness. Her head pounded, and when she tried to move, she realized her wrists were zip-tied to a metal chair. She's awake. The voice was rough, Brooklyn accented. A light clicked on, blinding her. As Maya's eyes adjusted, she made out a warehouse, abandoned, judging by the rust and decay. 3 men stood in front of her, all wearing dark clothes and hostile expressions. The one in front was older, maybe 50, with graying hair and a scar across his eyebrow. Maya Carter, he said, consulting a phone. 25, waitress, drowning in debt until a few weeks ago. Now the Reaper's new pet. How's that working out for you? Who are you? Maya's voice came out hoarse. Angelo Russo. I run the docks for the Russo family. He crouched down, getting level with her face. Your boyfriend has been stepping on our territory. We need to send a message. Terror crystallized into focus. The Russo family? She'd heard whispers about them. Vincenzo's primary rivals locked in a Cold War that occasionally turned hot. He'll kill you for this, Maya said, trying to sound braver than she felt. Angelo smiled. Oh, I'm counting on him trying. See, we have something planned. The Reaper comes to rescue his little girlfriend, walks right into our trap, and boom, problem solved. New York's ours again. You're going to kill him. We're going to bury him. Angelo stood, gesturing to one of his men. Take a picture. Make sure she looks scared. The Reaper needs proper motivation. The camera flash burned Maya's retinas. Then Angelo's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, and his smile grew wider. He's on his way, Angelo announced, bringing half his army. This is going to be fun. Vincenzo received the photo while sitting in the back of his Mercedes. His second in command, a scary woman named Isabella, who'd been with the family for 20 years, reviewing security reports beside him. One glance at Maya tied to that chair, terror in her eyes, and something inside him broke. Location? He demanded, his voice ice. Red Hook, Isabella said, already on her phone. Russo warehouse, the abandoned one by the waterfront. It's a trap, boss. They want you to come. Then I'll come. Vincenzo pulled a gun from the console, checked the magazine with practiced ease. Call Marco, Alessandro, and Giovanni. Full team, heavy weapons. Vincenzo, they touched what's mine. His eyes were empty. The Reaper fully emerged. I'm going to burn their entire organization to the ground. The assault began at 2 a.m. Maya heard it before she saw it. Gunfire, shouting, the sound of something exploding. The warehouse shook. Angelo cursed, barking orders into his phone. How many? He demanded. The answer made him pale. Then the main door blew inward in a shower of sparks and metal. Through the smoke came Vincenzo, flanked by a dozen men in tactical gear. He moved like death itself, gun raised, firing with clinical precision. Angelo's men returned fire, but they were outgunned and outclassed. Within minutes, half of them were down, and the rest were retreating. Vincenzo walked through the carnage without breaking stride. He shot a man reaching for a weapon, stepped over another writhing on the ground, and finally stood in front of Angelo with the gun pressed against the older man's forehead. She's over there, Angelo gasped, pointing at Maya. I didn't touch her, I swear. Vincenzo pulled the trigger. The shot echoed through the warehouse. Angelo crumpled, and Vincenzo was already moving, crossing to where Maya sat frozen, unable to look away from the spreading pool of blood. Don't look, Vincenzo said, blocking her view as he cut the zip ties. His hands were gentle, a stark contrast to the violence of seconds ago. Maya, look at me. Only at me. She did, and the concern in his eyes was real, more real than the corpses around them. Are you hurt? He asked, checking her over with quick efficiency. Did they? No, they wanted to use me to trap you. Maya was shaking, adrenaline and shock making her teeth chatter. You killed him, He took you. Vincenzo's voice was flat. That's a death sentence. He lifted her. She was too unsteady to walk, and carried her through the warehouse. His team had secured the area, bodies everywhere, the air thick with cordite. Isabella met them at the door. Clean teams en route. Police won't be an issue. We have the precinct covered. Good. Vincenzo didn't slow down, carrying Maya to his waiting car. Find every Russo holding in the city. I want them bankrupt by morning. All of them? All of them. Back at his penthouse, Vincenzo set Maya on the bathroom counter and personally cleaned the cuts on her wrists from the zip ties. His touch was methodical, professional, but his hands shook slightly. You came for me, Maya said quietly. Of course I came for you. You killed them all. I would have killed 1,000. Vincenzo met her eyes, and there was no apology in his gaze. This is who I am, Maya. This is what I do. They threatened what's mine, so I eliminated them. I'm not a possession. Aren't you? He leaned in, caging her against the counter. You're mine, Maya. Mine to protect, mine to keep, mine to hold. I tried to warn you. I tried to tell you what being with me would mean. This is insane, Maya whispered. Yes. Vincenzo's thumb traced her jaw. And you're still here. He was right. She was still here, despite the violence, despite the fear, because underneath the monster was a man who'd raised half a city to save her, who looked at her like she was worth more than his empire. Maya pulled him down into a kiss, desperate, needy, acknowledging what they both knew. She wasn't leaving. Couldn't leave. Whether that made her his captive or his partner, she no longer knew. Vincenzo groaned against her mouth, lifting her off the counter. They made it to the bedroom, clothes scattering in their wake. He took her with a desperation that matched her own, both of them seeking confirmation that they were alive, that this was real. Afterward, tangled in Egyptian cotton sheets, Vincenzo held her close. There's something I need to tell you, he said quietly. Maya's contentment evaporated. What? Your father, his death. Vincenzo's jaw tightened. It wasn't an accident. The world tilted. What? Michael Carter worked for me. Not construction. He was an informant. He fed us information about the Russo family's operations at the docks. Vincenzo's voice was careful, measured. 5 years ago, they found out. They rigged the scaffolding collapse to look like an accident. By the time I learned the truth, It was too late. Maya pulled away, her mind reeling. You knew. All this time you knew how my father really died? Yes. And you didn't tell me? You let me believe. She couldn't finish, rage and betrayal choking her. I was trying to protect you from the truth, Vincenzo said, reaching for her. Maya slapped his hand away. Protect me! You don't get to decide what I can handle. My father was murdered, and you kept that from me. He died because of his association with me, because I asked him to risk himself. For the first time, Vincenzo's composure cracked. I've carried that guilt for 5 years, and then you walked into my restaurant looking so much like him with his stubbornness and his courage, and you what? Decided to play hero to assuage your guilt by keeping me as your pet? Maya was crying now, angry tears she couldn't stop. Get out! This is my penthouse. Then I'll leave. She tried to stand, but Vincenzo caught her wrist. Not hard, but firm. You want to leave? Fine, walk out that door. But you'll be taking your mother's treatment with you, your sister's education, your own safety. Because the Russo family knows who you are now. They know you matter to me. That makes you a permanent target. I hate you, she whispered. I know. Vincenzo pulled her back down, and there was genuine pain in his eyes. But you need me, and I need you. That's the truth neither of us wants to face. Part 4, The Reckoning. 3 days later, Maya was still at the penthouse. Not because she'd forgiven Vincenzo, she hadn't, but because he was right. She had nowhere else to go. The Russo family might be crippled, but they weren't destroyed, and vengeance was a powerful motivator. Vincenzo gave her space, though his presence was constant through other means. Isabella checked on her regularly, bringing food and company. His driver remained on standby, and every morning, Maya woke to find fresh jasmine tea waiting. It was Isabella who finally broke through Maya's isolation. He's not sleeping, the older woman said, sitting across from Maya in the penthouse's living room. She was intimidating, tall, severe, with gray streaking her dark hair, but her eyes were kind. Won't eat, just works around the clock, coordinating retaliation. That's not my problem, Maya said, though her heart twisted. Isn't it? Isabella leaned forward. I've worked for the Salvatore family for 23 years. I watched Vincenzo grow up, saw him become the Reaper. He's brutal, yes, cold, but he's also loyal to a fault, and he genuinely cares about the people under his protection. He lied to me. He kept a painful truth from you because he blamed himself for your father's death. Isabella's expression was frank. Right or wrong, he was trying to protect you, just like your father did when he agreed to be an informant. Maya's head snapped up. What? Michael volunteered. We didn't recruit him. He came to us, said he couldn't stand by while the Russos moved drugs through the docks, not when kids were dying from the product. Isabella's voice was gentle. Your father was a good man who made a brave choice. Vincenzo honored that by ensuring you were never connected to it, until now. The words settled over Maya like a weighted blanket, heavy but oddly comforting. I don't know how to reconcile this, she admitted. The man who holds me at night with the one who executes people without blinking. You don't reconcile it, you accept it. Isabella stood, smoothing her skirt. Or you don't, but make the choice, Maya. This half-life helps no one. Maya found Vincenzo in his office, hunched over a desk covered in papers and laptop screens. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his normally immaculate appearance rumpled. Isabella sent you? He said without looking up. She suggested I might want to talk. And do you? Maya closed the door, leaning against it. Tell me about my father, the real version. Vincenzo finally looked up, and the vulnerability in his expression was stark. He approached us 7 years ago, said he had information about Russo operations, shipment schedules, bribe recipients, distribution networks. In exchange, he wanted protection for his family if anything went wrong. Did you promise him that? Yes, and I failed. The admission seemed to cost him. By the time I learned about the hit, he was already dead. I've spent 5 years making sure the rest of the promise held. Your mother's treatment, your sister's education, that started long before I met you. Anonymous payments, charitable foundations, shell companies. I made sure you were taken care of. Maya's eyes widened. The scholarship Emma got, me. The grant that covered your mother's first round of treatment. Me. I couldn't bring Michael back, but I could honor his sacrifice. And when I walked into your restaurant, Vincenzo stood, moving around the desk but keeping his distance. I saw him. Your eyes, your expressions, the way you stand up for yourself even when you shouldn't. It was like being haunted. He ran a hand through his hair. I told myself to stay away, that getting involved would only complicate things. But I couldn't. Every time I tried to leave you alone, I found myself back at that restaurant. Maya absorbed this, pieces clicking into place. The Russos, they know who I am. That's why they took me. They've known about you for years. Your father's daughters, living normal lives. They left you alone because you weren't worth the risk. Vincenzo's jaw clenched. Until you became important to me, then you became a weapon. So, what now? Maya asked. They'll keep coming, won't they? Not if I finish this. He pulled up something on his laptop, turning the screen toward her. These are the remaining Russo holdings, legitimate businesses they use to launder money. I'm systematically dismantling everything. In a month, maybe 2, they'll have nothing left. And the people who work at those businesses? The question made Vincenzo pause. What? The employees, the innocent people who work at restaurants or warehouses or whatever. What happens to them when you destroy their livelihoods? He looked genuinely taken aback. I hadn't considered that. Of course you hadn't, Maya said, but without heat, because you see targets, not people. Vincenzo stared at the screen for a long moment, then he started typing, his expression thoughtful. I can structure it differently. Buy out the businesses instead of destroying them. Keep the legitimate operations running under new management, cut off only the illegal elements. That's more complicated. Yes. He glanced at her, something soft in his eyes. But you're right. Collateral damage matters. Maya moved closer, drawn despite herself. I'm still angry at you. I know. I don't know if I can forgive the lie. I know that too. She stopped in front of him, close enough to see the exhaustion etched into his features. But I understand why you did it. And I think my father would have wanted me to understand. Vincenzo's hand came up slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face with a gentleness that seemed at odds with everything else about him. I can't be normal, he said quietly. I can't give you picket fences or safety or a life free from violence. This is who I am, who I'll always be. I know. But I can promise you loyalty, protection. Everything I have is yours if you want it. His thumb traced her cheekbone. And I will spend every day trying to be worthy of your father's sacrifice. Maya leaned into his touch, exhaustion and emotion overwhelming her resistance. I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more lies, even if the truth is ugly. Even if you think it will hurt me. Her eyes held his. I get to decide what I can handle. Deal. Vincenzo pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. I'm sorry. For all of it. I know, Maya whispered, and she did. They stood like that for a long time, finding equilibrium in each other. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Part 5, The Queen. 2 months passed in a blur of careful reconstruction. True to his word, Vincenzo restructured his approach to the Russo holdings. Instead of pure destruction, he orchestrated hostile takeovers, keeping businesses running while cutting off the criminal elements. It was more expensive, more time-consuming, but the appreciation in Maya's eyes made it worthwhile. She'd moved into the penthouse officially, though she kept her job at Della Luna, partially for normalcy, partially because she refused to be completely dependent. Vincenzo accepted this, though he insisted on security. Maya's shadows were now 2 ex-military operatives named Marcus and Chen, who dressed in casual clothes and pretended to be customers. This is insane, Maya muttered one night, watching them scan the restaurant for threats. This is necessary, Vincenzo corrected. He'd started joining her for dinner at Della Luna twice a week, much to Giuseppe's continued anxiety. The Russos are contained, but there are always other families, other threats. How do you live like this, always looking over your shoulder? You get used to it. But his expression suggested otherwise. Isabella became an unexpected ally, teaching Maya how to navigate the dangerous world Maya had stumbled into. Protocol, politics, which families were allied and which were hostile. It was like learning a foreign language, except the penalties for mistakes were measured in blood. "You're doing well," Isabella said one afternoon during one of their sessions. They were in Vincenzo's office. Maya's now too, with a desk set up by the windows. Most people in your position would have broken by now. "Maybe I'm broken and just don't realize it yet," Maya said wryly. "No, broken people don't ask about collateral damage or push back on the Reaper's decisions." Isabella's smile was approving. "You're making him better, more human." "I don't know if that's good or bad in this world." "In this world? Probably bad." Isabella's expression turned serious. "But for Vincenzo? Essential." The first real test came when Vincenzo asked Maya to accompany him to a meeting. "It's with the Colombo family," he explained, adjusting his cufflinks. "They're nominally allied with us, but tensions have been building. I need to shore up the relationship." "And you want me there because showing up with you sends a message that I'm settled, invested in the future, that I have something to protect beyond just territory." Maya understood the subtext. She was a humanizing factor, proof that the Reaper had attachments. "I'm a prop," she said flatly. "You're a partner," Vincenzo corrected. "There's a difference." The meeting was at a restaurant in Little Italy, neutral territory public enough to prevent overt violence. The Colombo family patriarch, an elderly man named Antonio, arrived with his own entourage. His sons, his consigliere, and his granddaughter Sofia, who looked at Vincenzo with undisguised interest. "Vincenzo," Antonio greeted warmly, though his eyes were calculating. "I hear congratulations are in order. A new relationship?" "Maya Carter," Vincenzo introduced, his hand possessive on the small of her back. "My partner." The way he said it made clear he didn't just mean romantically. Sophia's smile tightened. "Charming. And what do you do, Miss Carter?" "I'm a waitress," Maya said evenly, refusing to be embarrassed. "And I help Vincenzo make better decisions." Antonio laughed, a genuine boom of amusement. "I like her. She has spine." He gestured to the table. Sit. Let's discuss business." The meeting went well, surprisingly. Antonio was sharp but reasonable, and Maya found herself following the conversation with growing interest. Territory disputes, shipping schedules, political maneuvering, it was like chess played with human pieces. Afterward, as they drove back to the penthouse, Vincenzo was quiet. "You were good tonight," he finally said. "I didn't do anything." "You held your ground with Sofia. Didn't let Antonio intimidate you. Asked intelligent questions." He glanced at her. "You're a natural at this." "At organized crime?" Maya's laugh was hollow. "That's not exactly a compliment." "At politics, strategy." Vincenzo took her hand. "You see the game, Maya. That's rare." She wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. Because he was right. She had understood the game, had even enjoyed parts of it, the intellectual challenge of reading people and situations. "I don't want to become like you," she said quietly. "You won't. You'll become something better." Vincenzo lifted her hand to his lips. "You'll be the conscience I never had." The real crisis came 3 months into their relationship. Maya was at the restaurant when Isabella burst in, her usual composure shattered. "We need to go, now." "What happened?" "Vincenzo, he's..." Isabella's voice cracked. "There was an attempt, sniper, from a building across from his office. He's alive, but..." Maya didn't hear the rest. She was already running for the car, Isabella at her heels. The drive to the private hospital, not a regular one, somewhere owned by the family where gunshot wounds went unreported, passed in a blur. Vincenzo was in surgery when they arrived. Marco met them in the waiting room, his face grim. "How bad?" Maya demanded. "Shoulder wound. Went through clean, missed major arteries." Marco's hands were shaking. An inch to the right, and we'd be planning a funeral. Maya sank into a chair, her legs giving out. 3 months of relative peace, and she'd almost forgotten the danger was real. Constant. Unending. Isabella sat beside her, gripping her hand. He'll be fine. Vincenzo's survived worse. That's supposed to be comforting? In this life? Yes. 2 hours later, a doctor emerged. He's stable, conscious, asking for Maya. She followed the doctor down sterile hallways to a private room where Vincenzo lay propped up in bed, his shoulder heavily bandaged. Despite the pain medication, his eyes were alert. Before you start yelling, he said as she entered, I'm fine. Maya crossed the room and hit him, not hard, just a solid thump on his good shoulder. You scared me. I scared myself. Vincenzo caught her hand, pulling her down to sit on the bed. The shooter was Russo, last remnant of their organization, I think. He's been dealt with. Dealt with? Marco put 3 in his chest. Vincenzo's voice was matter-of-fact. It's over, Maya. The Russo threat is finally gone. She wanted to feel relief, but all she felt was exhaustion. Until the next threat, the next family, the next person who wants to take a shot at the king. Yes, Vincenzo admitted. That's the reality. Maya looked at him, really looked at him. At the bandages, the pallor under his olive skin, the vulnerability he rarely showed, and she realized something fundamental had shifted. She loved him. Despite everything, the violence, the lies, the impossible life he represented, she loved him. Maybe she'd been falling since that first night when he'd watched her with curiosity instead of anger. Maybe it had happened slowly, through jasmine tea and gentle touches and the moments when he let her see past the reaper to the man underneath. I can't lose you, she whispered. Vincenzo's eyes widened slightly. Maya, I know what you are, what this life is, and I'm choosing it anyway. She leaned down, pressing her forehead to his. I'm choosing you. His good arm came around her, holding her close. That's a dangerous choice. All the best ones are. Vincenzo kissed her. Soft, reverent, nothing like his usual intensity. When they parted, there were unshed tears in his eyes. I love you, he said, the words rough but genuine. I didn't think I was capable of it anymore. But you made me human again. I love you too, Maya admitted. God help me. They stayed like that, tangled together in a hospital bed, finding peace in each other despite the storm that constantly raged around them. Epilogue, 6 months later. The meeting was in the penthouse this time, neutral ground Maya had insisted on. All 5 New York families were represented, patriarchs and their trusted advisors gathered around the massive dining table that had been installed specifically for this purpose. Maya stood beside Vincenzo, wearing a black dress that Isabella had picked out and jewelry that had belonged to Vincenzo's mother. She wasn't just his partner anymore. She was his queen, acknowledged if not formally titled. Gentlemen, Vincenzo began, his voice carrying the authority that made grown men nervous. Thank you for coming. We have territory disputes to settle, shipping schedules to coordinate, and political contributions to discuss. The meeting lasted 3 hours. Maya spoke twice, once to suggest a compromise on a dock access dispute, once to point out that a proposed bribe to a city councilman was unnecessarily expensive. Both times, the room listened. Afterward, as the families filed out, Antonio Colombo stopped by Maya's chair. You've tamed the Reaper, he said with amusement. I wouldn't say tamed, Maya corrected. Just reminded him there are other ways to solve problems. Whatever you call it, it's working. The city's been more stable these past months than it has in a decade. Antonio's expression turned serious. That makes you valuable, Miss Carter, but also a target. I know. And you stay anyway? Maya glanced at Vincenzo, who was saying goodbye to the other patriarchs. I stay. Antonio nodded slowly. Love or madness, I wonder. Both, Maya said. Definitely both. That night, alone in the penthouse with the city glittering below them, Vincenzo pulled Maya onto the balcony. I have something for you, he said, producing a small box. Maya's heart stopped. Vincenzo, it's not what you think, not yet. He opened the box to reveal a ring, but not an engagement ring. This was white gold with small diamonds, elegant but understated. In my world, there are two kinds of partnerships, business and family. This ring signifies family, that you're under the Salvatore protection officially, that anyone who touches you answers to me. It's like a wedding ring, but for crime, Maya said, trying to lighten the moment even as emotion clogged her throat. Essentially. Vincenzo's smile was wry. Will you accept it? Maya thought about everything that had brought them here. Her father's sacrifice, her mother's illness that first night, when she'd spoken to a stranger without fear, the violence and tenderness, the lies and truths, the gradual recognition that love didn't follow rules or reason. Yes, she said, but on one condition. Name it. When you're ready, really ready, you ask me properly, with the other kind of ring. She met his eyes. Because I want both, family and forever. Vincenzo's expression cracked into something raw and vulnerable. You'd marry me, knowing everything? I'd marry you because I know everything. Maya held out her hand. Put it on. He did, the ring sliding into place like it belonged there. Then he kissed her, deep and claiming, his hands tangling in her hair. When they finally parted, Maya rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I'm terrified, she admitted. Of what? Of how much I love you. Of what I've become. She pulled back to look at him. 6 months ago, I was a waitress trying to survive. Now I'm... What? The Reaper's queen? A mafia wife in training? You're Maya, Vincenzo said firmly. That's all you need to be. Everything else is just context. Context that involves murder and extortion. Yes. He wouldn't lie to her. He'd promised that. But also loyalty, family, and a love I never thought I'd find. His thumb traced her jaw. You haven't lost yourself, Maya. You've just discovered new parts. Maybe he was right. Maya didn't feel lost. If anything, she felt more certain than ever. Not about the violence or the danger, but about this, the man in front of her, complicated and dangerous in hers. I love you, she said simply. I love you too, Vincenzo replied. My conscience, my humanity, my queen. He kissed her again, and Maya let herself fall into it, into him, into this impossible life they were building together. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't safe, but it was theirs, carved out of darkness and danger and the stubborn refusal to let go. Behind them, New York City sparkled like a promise or a threat. Both, probably. Maya had learned that in this world, most things were both. But for now, in this moment, with Vincenzo's arms around her and his ring on her finger, Maya chose to focus on the promise. The threats could wait until tomorrow. They always did. The end.